Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. If we can take our seats, we'll get underway. A few more outside, Luke. A few more people outside, yeah. Everyone's got their cakes. Okay, I am now going to welcome back Alicia McKay to the stage, and Alicia is going to introduce our panel members and moderate the next session. Thank you.
Fantastic. I guess I'll just stop it. Mate, we good? Yeah, I had a judgment call to make about 4 minutes ago. Is it worth trying to get cake and shoveling it into my face before I have to be on the stage? And can you guess where I landed on that? Yeah, so I'm coming back for that. All right. I'm very pleased to be moderating a panel. Could I just, why don't I invite my three onto the stage now, and then I'll introduce them to you one by one. So we've got Dominic Lamb, our Small Business Commissioner. Big round of applause. We've got Patricia O'Neill, the Chief Executive of the Cairns Chamber of Commerce. And we've got Shannon, is it Lemanski? We've got Shannon Lemanski, the co-founder of Aqua Ubique. Woo! Oh, God, I'm good. All right, so let me tell you about these wonderful people who I have had a bit of time. They said to me, don't worry about introducing Dom, everybody knows who she is. Does that sound right to you? Yeah. I mean, it feels like a little bit of a letdown, but we'll just go with it. So we all know who Dom is, apparently, so loving that. What I did think was really useful was when I arrived this morning and I said, oh, thank God you got the email. Green dresses, the girls are doing green dresses today. So that's worked out really nicely for us. I've got Shannon here, who I've got to know over the break. He's also been, oh, I see you finished your cake. I was about to say my co-conspirator in cake shoveling, but the man has finished his cake, so I'm very impressed. But I think you'll be, if you're not familiar with Shannon, I think you will be as interested in his story and what he is doing in his business and how he got there as I have been over the lunch break. So Shannon co-founded Aqua Ubique, which is a Queensland-based social enterprise who, and I quote, make drinking water out of thin air. I know, see, you're interested now, aren't you? I'm also very interested in that. So it tells me here that Aqua Ubique helps businesses of all sizes cut waste and cost while funding clean water in remote communities. So this is certainly a cause that I think everybody can get behind. Shannon's work bridges sustainability, technology, and impact, with a firm belief that business should leave every community better than they found it. And I think you're going to be preaching to the converted here on that one, my friend. So let's just get another round of applause for our friend Shannon. Oh, yeah. And then, last but not least, I've got the wonderful Patricia O'Neill with me here today on my right. So Patricia is the CEO of the Cairns Chamber of Commerce and a passionate advocate for small business. Patricia has over a decade of experience in media and stakeholder engagement and is dedicated to supporting sustainable growth and championing the Cairns business community through collaboration, strategy and regional pride. Big round of applause for Patricia, please. Well, you weren't on the email chain. Well, we were concerned about sort of getting that autumn vibe, and I feel like the dusky blue. Anyway, we won't sit too long on that, but I'm just a big fan of the autumn colour, and it is my favourite season. So I really like this collection of people we've put together for a panel here. So we've got state government, we've got local chamber of commerce, and we've got small business doing interesting stuff. And that feels to me like the starter for a really good conversation about how we can do a better job of this. Like, surely if we can't solve it with the three people I have with me on the stage, I'm really not sure how we can solve it. So why don't we start with our business, like you're the focus here, you're the one we all here to love and care for, support when it counts, small business, it's all for you, friend. So can you tell us a bit about, first of all, what it is that your business does, but then what I really want to know more about, and I think the room is going to be really keen to hear, is how did you end up making water out of thin air? How do you get there? What is the origin story? I'm so sorry, I didn't know that was going to be triggering.
Yeah, that'd be triggering. I played government for 12 and a half years. I was an army officer before I saw the light and ran away. That's not true. I had, our daughter came along and I decided that I needed to spend more time at home than I did sitting on top of hills and being told what to do. So if you rewind back to 2016, I'm over in Papua New Guinea. I'm supporting about 100 troops over there, doing an exercise that happens every 12 months, and we couldn't drink the tap water. So 100 soldiers generates a hell of a lot of plastic bottles. You crush the bottles and you take them up the tip, because I'm the gubbo as well. When I say the term tip, I don't mean like nice concrete, back your truck up, shovel it out like in most of the LGAs. I'm talking piles of burning garbage twice the height of this room. I have to take 2 military trucks with ground clearance that are about this tall, because I need to use one as an anchor to pull the other one out when it gets bogged. So I'm now ankle deep in mud and we're shoveling these plastic bottles off the back of the truck, and the locals come up to us. Hey boss, can you not crush these bottles before you throw them out? And I'm like, yeah, sure, not a problem. They're rubbish to us. Why do you need them? Oh, if we get the bottles uncrushed, we can harness more rainwater for our kids and we don't have to give them dirty creek water. These are locals that live at the tip. So I go, okay, well, that's pretty easy. Go back and tell the contingent, hey guys, I know that I'm the new kid. I've been asking you for 3 weeks to crush the bottles. I've finally got you to listen to me. Now ignore everything that I've said and just give them to me uncrushed, please. Fast forward 2 weeks. So this job happens every 12 months, and you grab the last 2 pallets of drinking water and you put them in the shipping container so you've got something to get started the next year. Fortunately, we hadn't needed it this year, so I've now got 2 pallets of water that have expired. I still don't understand how water expires in a plastic bottle, but sure. So I'm now back at the tip and I'm throwing out 2 pallets of unopened, still shrink-wrapped water bottles. The locals wouldn't touch it. Now, if these guys in uniform on army trucks are throwing this stuff out, there must be something wrong. Open a bottle, drink it in front of them. No, guys, there is nothing wrong with this. It's literally just the number on the bottle. So they think we're absolutely nuts. But wait, it gets worse. So I get back to Townsville and I'm talking to some of the senior soldiers that are kicking around. Oh yeah, when we were in East Timor for Interfet, same kind of thing had happened. The UN had sent through pallets of water. There'd be a letter that would come through a couple of days later, and I would say, oh no, that pallet's expired, you need to get rid of it. So we were discussing red tape earlier. This is a classic example of red tape. The contingent commander asked, hey, can we put this out the back of the barracks so it can grow legs and run away? I don't know, that's too high risk. That's a health risk. So with a locally employed workforce in the barracks, the guys had to slash the bottles and then burn the plastic because there wasn't a garbage service. So in the process of getting out of army, I come across the technology that I currently work with, which is called atmospheric water generation. It literally makes water from air. If you want to massively oversimplify it, it's a dehumidifier that's hooked up to a water filter, but there's some magic sauce in there as well. So I come across this tech and I go, I know where this can be life-changing right now. Near region, PNG, less than 30% of the population have access to safe drinking water, so therefore I'll start there. No, actually, hang on. Just before I do that, I'll double check our own backyard, because Australia's a first world country, everyone can turn on the tap, and we don't have this problem in Australia, right? Wrong. How many Australians do you reckon today can't turn on the tap and safely drink the water that comes out of it? Now, I'm not talking E. coli or fluoride or insert media speculation here. I'm talking water that doesn't meet the Australian drinking water guidelines. Arsenic, uranium, E. coli. It's over 2 million. Almost 8% of Australia's population cannot safely drink the water that comes out of the tap. Oh, so this must be really remote communities in the middle of nowhere, right? No, Cherbourg is less than 3 hours from here. They were under a boil water alert for 9 months last year. The daycare centre is on bottled water. The aged care centre is on bottled water. The state school isn't, because they can't afford it. And as a result, because the water is currently technically safe to drink, and the fact that we have to put the word technically in means it's not, the kids have to drink tap water when they're at school. The parents don't trust it, and as a result, it's not uncommon to see babies walking around Cherbourg with soft drink in baby bottles, because if you've got kids, are you going to try and make them formula on water that's come out of your tap brown? Like, if the bottle's warm, I get it thrown across the room at me from my 4-year-old. She's not drinking it, let alone if it looks like chalky milk. Oh, that's okay, because at the shop, soft drink is cheaper than bottled water. And this is why we have 2-year-olds in Cherbourg in the daycare centre with their teeth falling out, because that's all they've ever drunk. So, how do we solve this? If this tech, I can't claim the tech, it's been around for 18 odd years, so how do we solve this? Okay, I know where the tech needs to go, but I'm a startup, so I have no money, so how do I get it there? I generate real value and I solve a real world solution for other people, and then we do a give back model. So it's called Drop for Drop, and it launched on Monday just gone. The company's only 2 years old, and we launched Drop for Drop Monday just gone. So what it works, you'll have seen 15-litre office water coolers. So the tech that I work with replaces those. It'll generate 30 bottles a month. We only charge you for 10, so you get 20 bottles for free. And for every 5 office water coolers we replace, we can then put one into a remote or regional community that needs it. That's why the Elders Village at Cherbourg has a cooler as of Monday. The daycare centre has a cooler as of Monday. The director, thank you for making water fun for the kids again. Because when they think water, they think the guys that come and test the tap every day, they burn the tap to make sure that there's no E. coli on it first. They then test the water. She's worked there for 2 years, it's past 1 day. So it means the kids can't even do water play, let alone drink it. But now the 3 and 4-year-olds can come up and push the button and get the fresh drinking water out that's cold. So they have better water at school than they do at home. So that's what we do, and that's where it came from.
Amazing. We could have just given Shannon the keynote, actually, couldn't we? Amazing. And so what I would guess then, Shannon, is that you have got all levels of government frothing, chomping at the bit, trying to give you money and enable the passage of your business's growth and scale. Is that right?
Sure. No. And this is where I'll actually give a shout out to Tim and Sunny Coast Council. So the only reason why we've gotten to where we've gotten to in 2 years is because of the community that's on the Sunny Coast. So walked out of the army, which therefore means that I know what business operations is, right? What's a P&L? I've learnt that really quickly. So I walk into Forward Fest, which is an innovation, a small business innovation festival on the Sunshine Coast 2 years ago, with a business card. Some ideals, and no freaking idea what I'm doing. And at that stage, I'm looking for investment because I watch Shark Tank, which therefore means I know how to do business. I'm sitting in the venture capital brief and I'm watching some of you might know Wayne Gerard from when he was the Queensland Chief Entrepreneur. So him and Gavin Keeley, who's the head of RDA Sunny Coast Moreton Bay. So they're talking about how to raise capital, and I'm like, this is awesome. This is to angels, investors. I'm going to go up, I'm going to give them this pitch that I don't even know what a pitch deck is at this point, and I'll get money because that's how it works, right? Didn't embarrass myself, fortunately, but I was literally making the company while I'm sitting there before I go and hand Gav my business card, because I know he's going to look me up on LinkedIn and go, army officer, go away. So that was us 2 years ago. So we've gone from business card to Forward Fest 2024, we launched the product, and Forward Fest 2025, which has just happened, we launched Drop for Drop. The reason we were able to make that jump is Forward Fest last year, so Forward Fest 2024, the head of Sunny Coast Egg Dev, what do you need? I'm like, I need customers. He's like, okay. And I'm like, I'm just going to take a punt here. And if I could hang Sunny Coast Council's logo on my website, that then gives me the cred that then when I'm talking to other small businesses, I can go, yeah, council are buying from me, so I'm legit. Yeah, okay, cool, I'll have a talk to my people and we'll see what we can do. He found 2 water coolers, so therefore council were actually one of the first customers that came on board. And because of that, I've been able to sell out 3 times in 4 months and get water coolers where they need to go, because council actually took a punt on us and gave us the kickstart that we needed. And they built the community that allowed us to go from business card to product to impact project and do it in less than 2 years.
Okay, can we now get a round of applause for Sunshine Coast Council, then, please? What an incredible story, I think, on both having the platform and the event to be able to go along to start to go, how do I turn this thing in my head into something, is obviously really powerful. But I love what you've just said about council's role or the potential role as a backer and a supporter and as a client. And Raj said that also when he was up here earlier, saying don't give us grants, give us contracts. And that is just so powerful, because anyone who's ever started a small business will tell you, you're literally cobbling it together from one client at a time. You go to a meeting and they say, well, who else have you done this for? And you say, oh yeah, no, so we just kicked off a thing with Sunshine Coast Council actually, and like you just lean into that as hard as you can until they hire you, and the next people you go, yeah, I've got a few different councils actually, and that's literally how a business gets built, is one brick at a time, building that credibility. We don't need money, we need proof. So I just think that's such an interesting way to think about the role that you play as such a big spender in your community, as well as a facilitator of knowledge and connections. And it sounds like in this case, you benefited from both. Now, I'm just going to lob this one at you, Patricia, because I'm picking that not all small businesses or startups receive such enablement and support from their local authority.
Unfortunately not. And just to, huge well done. That was inspirational to hear what you've done as a small business, and really, really proud of you. Businesses want a hand up. They don't want a hand out all the time. I was astounded by a new executive that appeared at our council recently, and I was telling him of a situation where one of our small businesses came to me and says, I just don't know why I've not won this particular tender. I've found out who has won the tender. They don't come from here. They've done it for a third of the cost. He says, and I know, I've been in this business for 30 years, and I know that job can't be done for a third of the cost. So I relayed that to council, and what I've learned over the years is of being at the Chamber of Commerce, or just in life in general, is sitting across the table, having a cup of coffee, and just relaying the experience of business that they have had with council in a constructive manner tends to get better outcomes. Gone are the days where Chambers of Commerce threw bricks at the council, and you're a big bad boy and you're a big bad girl, and I don't think that's achieved anything, but it certainly was the stereotypical chamber of many, many years ago. And when I explained this situation to this new executive, he says, well, if he's a third of the cost, we've got to look after our pennies. I'm like, but he's out of town. What process is in place to actually check that the job is actually going to be able to be done effectively and efficiently? And his answer to that question was, well, our customer service phones ring like hotcakes every day. People tell us things. I say, so there's no process in place to say that this job's going to be done effectively for a third of the cost. And he said, oh, I'm sure there must be, but we just rely on people putting things on the app or phoning us. So there's better ways in which we can actually be giving feedback, because the other guy might have been good, but the problem is this small business doesn't know why he's not won it. He's only found out through the grapevine that he's lost it because he's 3 times the cost.
That's obviously a very disappointing story, but it also baffles me a little, because it feels like such an unnecessary loss of an opportunity to connect. Council's number one advantage, the number one thing we have, is that we're close to the community. That's what makes council great. It's the point of local democracy, is that we've got people sitting there who know the place and are connected to it. And I remember maybe 10 years ago, we would sit at these conferences, and there was a lot of conversation about how council really had to up their game on the customer service front, because the community expectation now was instant service and instant response. And so people saying council really needs to, the community's getting such great service everywhere, they really want us now. Well, how the tables have turned. Has anybody tried getting customer service lately from their telecommunications provider, from the supermarket, from the bank? You can't have it anymore. Council now is we're in this topsy-turvy world where the way that you've got actual people who live there that pick up the phone and talk to you and tell you not just the outcome of your customer service request, but the outcome of your submission on your operational plans. There's a level of service now that we're actually charging ahead in comparison to the private market. But all that to say that what council has as an advantage is that capacity to have community connection, relationship building, conversations. What actually is happening here? How can I talk to this business owner and say, look, you genuinely did miss out this time, mate. You completely missed the boat on the pricing. But let's talk about, what are the other ways that we can get you more tender ready? Was this an accessible process for you? Can we help you out with that? I was just in Broken Hill 2 days ago. They were talking about how they had replaced their vehicle fleet, and they said, we use the online process, and they're like, but there's 3 local suppliers that won't get near that, so we give them a buzz, and we let them know that this one's up for tender and see if we can help them out, which feels to me the point of having a council is that you've got someone picking up the phone and giving them a buzz and doing that in-person stuff. So I guess I'm going to come back to you, Patricia, and ask another question to kind of balance a little bit of that out, which is, where have you seen that done well? What are the good news stories of councils that are able to build on that personal connection with the small businesses in their area?
Yeah, one of the best things that actually occurred 3 years ago now was, again, through advocating with local and state government on procurement, they actually introduced an event called Meet the Buyer, which I'm sure a lot of councils now do as well. So that all came out of the fact that council was saying, or government, sorry, I'll say government because it wasn't just council, but government were saying, well, they just don't know how to fill out a tender. That's their problem, they just don't know. I said, well, I'll work with you and we'll teach them how to be effective in filling out tenders, but they need to know what's up for grabs. What are the lollies that are out there? So how can we teach them to pitch? And that's where Meet the Buyer in our region started a few years ago. And that's just growing exponentially. And council, I take my hat off to them, they do it so well. Really market it well along with us at the Chamber and along with the department from state government as well. And it's been fantastic. There has been some really good success stories of money that remains in Cairns, and that's what we say, let's keep our dollar going around. We use the infinity sign because what goes around comes around. And it might be a little bit more expensive, and we spoke about that this morning, but it's, again, if you're putting profit into the bank of a small business who then goes and supports the local footy club, who then goes and supports, keeps kids in a little football match or whatever, it's so important. And I think it can't always be down to the bottom line.
100% agree. I'm also still reeling from they don't know how to fill out a tender. I'm kind of going, isn't that a sign that your process isn't very good? Like, the idea that you would take that as a sign that your potential suppliers were dumb rather than a sign that your process sucks feels a little bit backwards to me. If your process is pushing out good businesses who could be bringing value, you should look at your process. Which I guess brings me to you, Dom, which is that you occupy this really interesting position in the ecosystem and that you can kind of see this from the peak. Like, you can see the movements of small businesses and of local communities trying to support them. When you look at it from your surveying the kingdom point of view, what are some of the common themes or frustrations or opportunities that you see are universal to so many of these relationship breakdowns, or not?
I think that, so when we travel around the state, there are 6 things that people raise with us, but typically they are not relevant to, say, the relationship between, say, government and a small business. But more often than not, and through the probably collection of red tape that we've recently been doing. So we've received over 250 submissions in, say, 6 weeks or so, right? And it's still open, they're still flowing in. Feel free to pop your own in there whenever you get a chance. And what we see is actually the thing that is the biggest friction point is customer service, transparency and consistency of application. So it's always, for us, about, you told me it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks, it's now 18 weeks. You told me it would cost this amount, it's now a different amount. you told me that this is the criteria I needed to meet, but in actual fact, I needed to meet this criteria over here, which you never told me about. And it's just that inconsistency of approach, I think, across the board. The other thing we see is just that concept that David talked about before, which was friction. They just view their interactions with government as friction, as opposed to being frictionless, where I put, my information in once and then it talks to all of you and I never have to talk to you again about it. It's the friction of doing it. And I guess when we talk about red tape, it's not a single thing. It's actually the burden of 100 things that we're asking them to do, whether it's the ATO, or whether it's Fair Work, or whether it's, TMR and your registrations for your cars, and then it's your food safety licence, and now I need a liquor licence, and now I've got a noise complaint. Like, it's just one thing after the other, and we're asking one person most of the time to bear the weight of all those things.
There are a lot of nods around the room for that one. It's so hard, doesn't it? And I think you and I were speaking about this at lunch, Trish, is that does seem to be an empathy disconnect or something between regulator and customer/citizen. Do you have any further thoughts on that one?
I think the majority of people, particularly in the procurement space, have never actually run a business or never worked in a business, and they perhaps don't appreciate the implications of their actions or decisions when it comes down to just delivering the bad news, which is usually on an email or a piece of a letter that goes out to them. There's no thought process around the impact that actually has. So having more of an appreciation as to what it takes to make those tills ring and make those lights stay on and the bills to get paid, I think would be really helpful.
Yeah, and you mentioned the procurement process, and that feels to me such an area of opportunity to make this whole process easier. Raj mentioned earlier emerging supplier panels, but just as a supplier to councils, the number of times I've worked with a council who's made me fill in 3 forms, and then I've sent my invoice and I've sent it back and said, your address is incorrectly formatted on the invoice, so we can't pay it until next month, or whatever, and something that we've always done in our own business is if we get an invoice from a small business, we pay it the same day if we can. It's a different policy than for a mortgage or for a utility statement or whatever. If a small business invoices you pay them fast because you know what that means cash flow wise. And if you're sitting in a council finance department or doing procurement thinking it's okay to kick someone down the road 30 days on a $2,000 invoice, that might be the only cash that's coming in this month, guys. Like, pay small business the day you get the invoice. You know you can do it. It's not even harder. You don't need your invoice run. You're lying. Sorry, I'll just... Soapbox is down. Okay.
Can we just talk a little bit about empathy? Because I think we are in a really unique position in that we deal with regulators and we deal with federal government and state and local and sort of everything in between. And it's not uncommon for me to hear, and you probably hear this in your own councils or wherever you are, well, we needed to lose some of them. We needed to lose some of them. They should have just not been in the market, really. Like, this is really about... who's doing good business and who's not doing good business. That's something I hear all the time. The other thing I hear from certainly people that don't live in the state, when we're talking about federal regulators and others, and this sort of impacts our local government areas and also our small businesses, is they have absolutely no idea about the size of Queensland. So we talk a lot about, like, we'll say, the tyranny of distance, and they're like, oh yeah, what's that, like 2 hours? Or they say to us, we do engagement with small businesses in regional areas, and I say, oh yeah, where do you go? Townsville and Cairns. And they say, yeah, that's right, isn't it? But there's just no understanding of things like the natural disasters that we recently had in Southwest, where we were talking about, over 150,000 cattle in a place basically the size of Victoria underwater, and ASIC sat there going, really? And I'm like, yes, yes. They don't. There is a real misconception around who are we talking about, and I think like when you look at those numbers, and I say them all the time because my theory is if I say them enough, someone will listen, right? 2.5 million of them, 62% of them are sole traders. They're single individuals, right? 35% are run by women, under 8% are under the age of 30, 43% are not profitable, 75% make less than the average wage. 80% of their finance is attached to their home loans. That's 42% of your apprentices, 1 million employees in Queensland. What do we do if we lose them? What's the plan? Because in a lot of these places that are not, you know, Cairns, Townsville or any of our major places, we lose them, they don't come back. There's the access to capital problem. I mean, if an amazing business like this has problems finding capital, how do I get, you know, the builder in Quilpie to get funded, right? How do I get him in front of Wayne Gerard or, you know, an angel investor that's going to say, yeah, this is a great idea, knowing that that council, if you buy a piece of land, they'll give you $25,000 to build on it, still can't get capital to build on it. Like, there's some of the bigger gaps when we talk about, like, empathy, but also sustainability of these communities.
Can I get a quick round of applause for... Did you practice those numbers, or are they inside you now? Wow. I love that so much. Look, I'm going to take, I think, 2 questions from the audience because I know we have to get back onto some sort of schedule after our late lunch. And I know that you've all got some good questions, but I reckon I can take 2. No, they have them, but no one wants to be the first to put their hand up. I just kick back and wait. I've got 3 kids, man. I can wait all afternoon.
No, okay. While you're all thinking, this is how you guys can actually help. So this is how LGAs can actually help small business. So we've covered keeping cash in the economy. We've covered what happens if small businesses go out of business, and we've covered that red tape is ridiculous. Because I can say that because I'm at the bottom. So how do you guys get me to show up to whatever program you've rolled out that the mayor's signed off and the CEO's done this and it's an excellent idea for council? I'm too busy struggling to make payroll and deal with ASIC and deal with all the other bullshit that I don't have time for a council program. I'm sorry, I don't. Until you say that the procurement officer is going to be at the other end, and if you come and you do the program that upskills me in whatever the council box tick that I need to do is, and then I get the opportunity to pitch to the procurement officer, and sure, okay, it's non-public monies and therefore you can't guarantee me a contract, that's fine. If I can sit down with someone and I can give them my business card and I can get theirs and I can have a coffee with them, that's how I can then get a council contract, and that's how you then keep money in that. So it's very much the what's in it for the small business owner to show up, why am I investing my time to show up, and your BAU spending you're going to spend the money anyway. You want people to show up to the programs anyway, so put the money at the back end of the program. I'm going to show up, I'm going to learn whatever the process is that I need to learn to get into your supply system, and then your money stays inside your community to go to the local footy club.
I was recently asked to unpack the procurement policy for the state government, and one of the key things that came out of that, which I think is fantastic, I didn't realise this, is that none of the larger departments actually have the ability to have a card, where if they just need to go and get stationery, it was on a purchase order and blah, 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 and it would take forever to actually get the money. So out of that came that they would all actually now have a certain amount of money loaded onto a card that they can just pay for over the phone there and there on credit card. But that, again, until we actually sat down and unpacked the procurement policy, and a lot of the issues are not in the principles of the policy, it's actually in the human being at the other side who's dictating how they're going to actually allocate tenders or how they're going to buy stuff, that the issue was. So as much as you can that's feasible, if there's a credit card facility or a line of credit or whatever you call it, that's available to your procurement officers, I think that would be really helpful for small business.
That is such good advice. I'm just going to double down on that and say operate at the edge of your delegations. Operate at the edge of your delegations and at the edge of the legislation, because all the time people tell me, oh, we can't do that. And I say, are you sure? Have you checked? I think you could. And everybody knows the person or their contact that's either in state government or works for someone, and they just make it happen, don't they? You say to them, I need this, and they go, wow, technically we can't do that, but hang on a tick. And they know how to make it happen. Be the person that's that person. Be the person that makes it happen. All right, I'm gonna close on a one-liner from each of our. Oh, we got a question after. Yes.
No one seems to have addressed the elephant in the room.
Who is it?
It's not me.
Oh.
Coles and Woolies. I've got a situation in Bundaberg where there's a place, Gina's Kitchen, and we as a chamber help them by writing submissions for government funding, etc. And to bring a freeze-dry thing into Australia's $3 million, and then you've got all the infrastructure that goes around that, and they're trying to get rid of like all your unused crops and things like that. And Bundaberg's a farming community. What's happened is that their vision is to have these then set up in each of the capital cities around Australia. But they go to Coles and Woolies and it's a brick wall because we can buy it much cheaper from overseas.
Yeah, so one of the things that we struggle with as an organisation, and it happens, funnily enough, not just with Coles and Woolies, but with big insurance companies, big banks, even big transport providers, anything that's big, is that sometimes the red tape to do with them can be just as bad as government. And I guess in terms of our ability to influence, we have had some really good success for that. And often we find that the person that's in the situation is unable to go up the tree, or they don't know the right person, or they haven't found the right one. To give you an example, about 2 years ago, all of you used to complain to me that when there was a disaster, RACQ would leave that your roads were closed for 8 weeks. And you would say to me, none of the tourists will come, or they would call and I'd be like, the road's clear, you can get through. But RACQ wouldn't change their site, right? It was something that happened all the time. And I, a little bit bold, sent a LinkedIn message to the CEO of RACQ and said, I want to meet with you. Funnily enough, got a meeting, walked in and I said, well, why do you do this? And he said, oh, that's because we get our information from TMR. It was us. It was my fault, right? It wasn't their fault at all, but no one had raised it with them. They had not realised that it was causing a delay. No one had said anything. And now they've worked out a system. I'm hoping it's improved, but we're working on that. But that's really common in that they just don't know. Coles and Woolworths are absolutely notorious for being really difficult to deal with small producers. That's true. But there are ways in, and sometimes you've got to lean on those industry bodies in that space. Yeah. Yep. You just got to find the right person.
Amazing. All right, guys, we're gonna close out. I think we could do this for the rest of the afternoon. What a quality panel, by the way, and just more broadly, what a quality experience and set of speakers there's been for this entire conference today. These things are usually boring as hell. This has been fantastic. Come back to Queensland, man. You've sold me. Okay, one-liner from each of our panellists. If you could change one thing with a magic wand, what would it be? Starting with you, Dom, and coming down. One thing with a magic wand to make this whole thing easier. What is it? We come back to you. Yeah, all right. You only get one. One-liner.
I just need a coffee. Like, legitimately, get out of your office. I just need a coffee.
Yeah. Oh.
A procurement officer to spend a day in the life of a small business.
Good one.
Get your staff to put their contact numbers on the bottom of their emails.
Hey! And with that, we're done.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give our panellists and moderator one more round of applause. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce the speaker for our next session. Born in Brisbane, Dave Hansen began his career in Townsville City Council before moving to the private sector. where he is consulted to a range of clients across Queensland. In 2015, he joined Logan City Council as Development Assessment Manager before commencing in his current role as Director of Growth, Economy and Sustainability in 2018. He has since led a diverse team of professionals in planning, economic development, infrastructure policy, climate resilience and more. Please welcome David to the stage. Thank you. You want to use that one?
How's that? That's good. Hello, everyone. What a cool panel. I think I'm equal parts inspired by the business stories and the shout-outs for local government, which is a sector that I'm very passionate about, and then equal part triggered by some of those disgraceful stories of executives behaving badly and just councils getting it wrong. So we're all on that journey of improvement together. This will be a bit different, I think, from what you may have come across in the last little while at this conference. I guess it's about picking up something different, picking up the frame of reference to a global context. So, and you know, probably a fair question to ask, what does the United Nations have to do with small business? I hope to be able to make some of those linkages for you. Okay, so Logan was involved in a quality of life initiative, I guess is the terminology, sponsored by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, who have some challenges in their own world around quality of life and are keen to improve as well. So we were one of 8 cities invited to attend or participate in a year-long piece of work. So names like Bubaneswar, Seoul, Niš in Serbia, Querétaro in Mexico and little old Logan City. So the aim, I guess, of the project, sorry, I'll just go back while I finish that. Can I go back? Yeah, the aim of the project is really to be a data-driven exercise around uplifting the quality of life for our communities. So everyone has their own frame of reference, I guess, around quality of life. It can be everything from secure housing, from opportunities for your kids, to be able to get a great job, get an even better job, the quality of the environment, the nature of the economy. So a whole wide range of metrics, all aimed at that one singular outcome. And what we found is when you talk about well-being and health and that sort of stuff, people sort of disconnect or not. When you talk about quality of life, they tend to give you a very focused answer on what that means for them. And that's why the UN was in particular focused on that language. We were looking for a city benchmarking tool at the time. Believe it or not, local government doesn't always have much regard to how they're going relative to other places. We say we do, and then we pick a benchmarking, you know, healthy cities, happier cities, all this sort of crap. We didn't want that. We wanted something which was really independent and let us measure the things that were important to us, but also have some frame of reference around the world. And what you'll see today, I guess, is that 2 parts to the initiative, which was a global layer and a local layer. We needed to have, and once again you'll be shocked that not all the money flows to the best, most data-driven ideas. We are as guilty and have been as guilty of that in our organisation as anyone. So when we get to budget time and we sort of try to contrast, you know, investing in investment attraction or small business uplift or a road, roads always bloody win, unfortunately, and they're important, but they're not the most important thing in all aspects. So how do we guide our investment based on evidence? We love the idea of co-creating it with a bunch of cities around the world because we really are keen to learn from them on what they themselves have measured, and there's very much common themes across all of these local layer measurements especially. Quality of life, as it turns out, means much the same thing no matter where you are in the world. So we started this in March 2024 and we've just reported back to Council with the whole range of the data, the outcomes, and there's a public report that you can find via our committee websites. So this is an overwhelming slide, isn't it? But 23 odd, I think there is global layer indicators. So these are the ones which the UN gave to us as things to measure. And anyone who's had anything to do with the Sustainable Development Goals, you'll see a bit of a slice and a flavour through them. But another reason why this project exists is because no one's having much regard to the SDGs anymore. There's not a whole lot of effort going in around the world on tracking against them. So this is a more condensed and compressed slice of the more meaningful indicators. So when you apply some of these to what it might mean to attract a business, start a business, you can start to, mobile internet penetration rate. What does that look like across the world? The safety, population of the people who feel safe walking alone at night. Very important to a place like Logan where the perception of the place is reasonably unsafe. The reality is it's no more unsafe than anywhere else when you actually dive into the data. So the real benefit of this program at an organisational level is that it starts to correct the stories you've always told yourself about the places that we work and the places that we live. And as I go through, I'll give some examples of those as well. So all of these measured, percentage of households living within 15 minutes of open space. There's just the housing one. I guess if you're looking through SA2 level data and there's a particular pocket of the city where your business relies on, maybe more than most, on discretionary income and people are really stretched against their household costs, you might make a bit of a different decision as to where you want to locate that business rather than in that pocket of the city. So, as I said, every city will measure this stuff. The really cool part for us was when we got to get in and start to think, what are the wicked problems of Logan City and what would we want to understand better from a bespoke benchmarking exercise. So public transport, not only the number of stops, but where they're going, where people are tapping on and tapping off. We tell ourselves in Logan that the north-south is much, much better than the east-west because north-south's got Brisbane and the Gold Coast as the anchor points, and we've got the southeast busway and the faster rail, the heavy rail. Well, what actually happened was that it's 70% as good. East-west is 70% as good. So we need to get more nuanced in the way that we talk about those things and the way that we pitch to government for an outcome on some of those things. Job density, the nighttime economy stuff is really interesting for Logan. So I'll get to an example in a minute, but we don't have much of a nighttime economy. We leak. There's so much leakage from Logan into the cities around us for the spend, and we want to do things. We want to make targeted investments on how to control that. We have a range of metrics around our schools. English as a second language, hugely important to a multicultural city like Logan. How do we get those migrants and co-participating more strongly in the economy? Health services, once again, we leak a lot of that to Wickham Terrace, around where we are, and it's been a real concerted effort from council to contain that spend. So just quickly, a couple of those stories. New bus stops, we thought it was going backwards, it's actually going up, but when you dig into the data, not so much landing where the growth is landing. So I think with public transport advocacy, the squeaky wheels really do get the benefits, and we're not squeaky enough by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, at face value, a good story, but when you actually look at where they're tapping on and tapping off and where the uplift is happening, it's in the traditional parts of Logan, which is, the Springwoods and the Roachdales. It's not the Flagstones and Yarrabilbas where everyone's choosing to live. Okay, this is the nighttime economy one that I was talking about. So what it's trying to do is measure for every dollar that people who live within these suburbs or SA2 areas, for every dollar that they spend outside of Logan, those cents on the right-hand side is what they'll spend in their suburb. So just to give a couple of contrasting stories, where's Crestmead? So Crestmead's spending about 40 cents, so they'll spend $1 outside and then they'll only spend 40 cents or so in Crestmead. When you go to Crestmead, there's not a lot of a nighttime economy, there's not a lot of great businesses. So contrast that to Underwood, which is our most northern suburb. which is connected to the Sunny Banks, and you've got a lot of options around there to go a short distance and spend your money. They're up at that 70 cent limit. So when we're starting to target, we hear, whether you're a great cafe or who do you attract into some of these sort of underdone suburbs to give them an offering and to make sure that that business is going to succeed. It becomes a really targeted investment discussion rather than just let's throw money at the whole city and hope it sticks somewhere. We can't do that anymore. And health services, as I said, specialist health services are underrepresented in Logan. We have a lot of public health offering. So down the bottom, the gross floor area is going up. We track this as an ED team quite closely, so the data was all in-house here. And you can see by service what that starts to look like, and then we can put a place like Meadowbrook in Logan is our health and wellbeing precinct with the major public hospital. We are then making targeted pitches to industry and private hospitals to fill those gaps. English as a second language is a huge limiting factor for Logan. Participation in community life and participation in the economy, getting a job, getting your kids engaged in their upbringing. We run a range of library-based ESL programs, and obviously there's a whole heap of other providers. The ambition for this slice of data is to add ours to access to data from others. Wasn't as bad as we thought it was. We are reaching but they're through to completion as well. They're not people who start and stop. They're people who are getting an outcome in terms of that language. But if we could solve that, our economy would start to hum so much more, because we are such a landing point for that cohort of people. Okay, so this project, just to sort of finish up, this project has completely changed the language we use in the organisation. So quality of life has come to the fore in the way that we communicate with people. We get better engagement. It was built on discretionary effort from staff. So when I look across local government land and the City of Logan staff, this is the sort of thing that gets them excited. These are the opportunities we need to show our people, and they will stretch themselves every day of the week to get into them and to do a great job. I'll talk about the subsequent program of transformational work we're hoping that it will lead to. We want to get better at our data and analytics in-house, and also the UN has a lot going on, and there's a lot of subsequent programs that we're very interested in. Reshaping the city to be more suitable for children is one that would come to mind. So we're looking to harness that relationship a little bit better as well. Just finally, this program of work, there was so much that we would love to have measured, and it was just becoming overwhelming. So we have a program of work called Transform Logan, which is emerging, which is a 50-year horizon about what are those wicked problems of Logan, and devoid of political cycles, devoid of budget, like what would you do to solve those things if you could? So really setting that beacon on the hill for the city and using some data-driven work to get there. So we hope the program will create meaningful uplift in the quality of life for our people. It'll protect what we love about the city, better leverage its strengths, and it's a place of enormous potential. And this work that we've done with the UN has absolutely reinforced that. And I guess it's given everyone a bit of a kick in the pants, that the stories we tell ourselves aren't always real, and the way that we attract investment has to respond to the evidence. It can't just respond to our version of events as the city. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Does anyone have any questions for David? Come on, it's got to be one. That's great stuff. That gets me excited for the afternoon. Shout out to my team over here, Laura Thompson and Nikel from Brisbane City Council. We do a lot of great stuff in this space as well, and it's really important stuff in how we shape policy and programs into the future. I'd now like to introduce the next speaker, Jack Stone. As an Apiarist, I had to really practice that word because of my Italian background. I would pronounce it very differently. And the director of Bee 1/3, Jack Stone is a passionate advocate for urban beekeeping and sustainable food systems. Through Bee 1/3, he manages over 150 beehives across southeast Queensland, promoting the vital role of bees in our ecosystem. Jack's work not only produces delicious honey, but also educates communities on the importance of pollination and food security. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you. How's that microphone? Good, perfect. I've got a little timer up here because I do tend to talk a bit. So today, I mean, it was a huge shock to me that I was asked to come and present today because, quite frankly, as a small business owner with only a handful of employees, I don't necessarily see myself as a very good small business owner. We've been in the just the realities of small business, right? We've been in the game of beekeeping here in the inner city for 13 years, since 2012. So we founded B1/3 Neighbourhood Honey on the premise of 1/3 of our global food supply being dependent on honeybees and native bees. The pollination of these insects is crucial to supplying our fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, and oils. Now, the topic of a hive mindset really got me thinking. Just through the beginning of COVID, I wrote a blog post on the principle of, or the idea of coming together as a community and pushing through hard times, being willing to change and alter and shift your perspective very quickly in times of uncertainty. And that was written off the back of what I was observing in the bees. Bees through different seasons are incredible creatures. They shift and change dependent on what is available in their direct ecosystem. And I've never used one of these. And thriving through collaboration and adaptation kind of was a topic for me that I knew I could speak from the heart through experience. So what we do as beekeepers is we bring bees into the eyes and the frame of mind of inner city folk. We bring bees onto the top of rooftops, 44 stories up in the sky. We bring bees into the middle of parklands, literally 100 metres down the road. We're collaborating with the Brisbane City Council and the private sector of Roma Street Parklands to deliver workshops and pollinators to the garden through native beehives, through European beehives, and then thus a return on their investment through that project with the honey that you have on your tables today. Sitting in front of you, we've got honey from the inner city here, from 2 different suburbs. But we work as a team. We're always flexible in the environment in which we work in. And we are always working with our collaborators on creative problem solving. Because we all know that bees are important, but we don't really fully understand how bees operate. Bees are quite a complex ecosystem. They build everything from scratch. And in fact, they have this really wonderful kind of team-based effort that they undertake. Someone else is calling me. Sorry, my apologies. That's awkward, isn't it? I'm just so popular. That's my removalist who's moved me 3 times and keeps buying honey off me. So, there it goes. Bees have this wonderful way of coming together and from scratch doing what we all know we need to do when we move into a new house, which is build from scratch. Now, we observed as beekeepers very early on this behaviour of collective chain links inside the beehive. Bees are hairy, they're grippy, they've got very small feet. They've got 6 feet, 3 on each side. They have a head, which is their thorax, where you see their eyes, and then they have a small little passage that connects to their abdomen, which is where their stinger is, where their wax glands are, and where they hold most of their digestive enzyme internal organs. They create this beautiful behaviour of festooning. Festooning is when bees come together and they hold on to each other and they create clusters or groups or crowdings of bees that hang. And they all hold on to each other because there's nothing else to hold on to. So when they move into a new cavity, they have to measure out their cavity, let's say a tree hollow. They have to measure out their cavity and they have to understand, okay, how big can we build this colony? Where is going to be our first frame of comb that we're going to build from scratch? I.e., as you see here, they build all of that wax from scratch. And they use festooning as a way to collectively work to get the colony started. Because without that structure of honeycomb, the queen can't lay eggs that ultimately rears the brood for the next generation. They can't store honey, which is their food supply, and they can't communicate effectively because they communicate through dance, vibration, and noise on the comb, on the surface of the comb. So festooning is a behaviour that we have the potential as communities to come together and do, and this is what we're doing right now. What we're doing right now is festooning in collective groups. Honeybees, like I said, contribute to 1/3 of our global food supply. All of our bees are placed around urban and coastal areas. Coastal beekeeping is very challenging. Lots of environmental factors that come into play when we're beekeeping on the coast, lots of disease, lots of hobbyists, lots of small, medium-sized beekeepers that we're always fighting against. But how we run our beekeeping company is very different to how you might traditionally think a beekeeper to be run, who trucks their bees all around the countryside. We bring bees in for permanent placement. So those bees in the garden across the road have been there for 11 years, and they know the area very well. They've mapped out the area, so they're passed down through generations, the messaging and the landscape detail onto their young to then go out and forage for food. They know the cycles of the local ecosystem to gather food. So there's this constant collective collaboration inside the hive where they're passing messages down through generations. How we run our business is through urban activation. We put bees on top of rooftops, on top of car parks. We have collaborations with Queensland Investment Corporation down at Robina Town Centre where we produce tons and tons of honey, like the parklands across the road. Our Robina Town Centre parkland is on a private allotment of land, 36 to 45 beehives that produces 2 tonnes of honey that goes directly into the shopping centre across the road and supplies restaurants, cafes, and a whole range of giveaways for collaborative stores in there, like larger chain stores who'd like to do a gift with purchase. We supply a 60-gram or 100-gram jar of honey with a QR code that actually talks about the greater project as a whole. We've contributed a million bees to the local community. Every day there's 1 million bees out in the local community pollinating crops. Bees are a great way to draw attention to a topic, whether it's around bees, whether it's around honey, whether it's around pollination or not. Bees are a great connector. Everyone has a story about knowing a beekeeper, being a beekeeper, knowing something to do with bees. And we use bees, what I've realised is we use bees over the years as a way to bring up the greater issues or the greater challenges within community. Because bees are a great example of just putting their heads down and getting things done. Bees don't hold to a schedule, bees hold to a job. If something needs to be done, it gets done. It doesn't get put on a list. They all come together, they say this needs to be done. The group assigns a row of bees, they clean up the honey gets restored inside the hive. And we see this 3 common tenets inside the hive as beekeepers when we're inspecting our brood, when we're inspecting the energy of our hives, when we're treating our hives for whatever issue may be present. We see resilience, we see teamwork, and we see adaptability. Now, resilience is often seen inside the hive as they can deal with the weathering. They can deal with the weathering of a constantly changing climatic ecosystem. Whether it's raining one day, beautiful sunshine the next, or heavy winds the day after. Bees are always out flying at their best capacity, and they are always putting their best foot forward. So they're never reserved. They're always confident in that they can get the job done. And when it comes to actually creating broader populations of bees, bees have this amazing way of splitting off. Every season, they actually split 2 to 3 times. So one colony will move from that tree on the left and end up in a branch on the right in the middle of Caxton Street. And we have to cut the branch down and rehome those bees. But they go out, they take a punt. They go, they actually communicate for weeks in advance before leaving the hive on what their strategy is going to be. They send out bees to scout for local areas to land, and those bees come back with messages and translate those messages back to the core cohort. And all those bees have a decision in when they're going to leave and how they're going to do it. So it's never just the one bee, the queen bee, the worker bee. It's a collective decision. We have teamwork. Like I said, when bees don't cry over spilt honey. They just get to work. When the honey is split inside the hive, all the bees rush and they start gobbling it up and then transporting it elsewhere in the hive. That row of honey there is probably 5 kilos of honey that's exposed on top of the hive. And those bees will clean that up in an afternoon and restore the honey down inside the hive elsewhere. They won't consume it, but they'll put it back into where it's more easily accessible. When it comes to actually creating a queen bee, a new queen inside the hive, bees have to communicate very closely with each other to decide which eggs are going to be chosen to be fed a very special food. So that all comes down to placement of the egg. It comes down to where the temperature is most stable inside the hive. And on the left slide, you can see a queen bee that is quite a healthy queen. She's got a large, long, drawn-out abdomen. She's full of millions and millions of eggs, lots of genetic diversity from different male bees that she's storing inside her abdomen. So when one genetic strain falls out, another genetic strain takes hold. That's why we see this shift in colour in the beehives. We see black bees come through with a black shiny back, then we see gold bees come through, and then black and gold bees. That all has to do with the genetic makeup of the mating cycle of the queen when she's first born into the hive. But you know, there's often 3 or 4 queen bees that get born into the hive at once. So when a hive has 2 or 3 queens that are born into the hive over the course of a 24-hour period, those queens emerge as royalty and they walk around the hive with confidence that they're now in charge. But the worker bees, which are a dominant 95% of the colony, made up of female bees, which are all the bees that do all the work in the hive, go figure, they come to a decision on which one of those 3 queen bees, which is just a fresh virgin queen thinking that they're on top of the world, which queen bees need to go. And they collectively come together and they will pair queens off against each other, and there'll be a battle in the hive where queens will bite, will tear, will fight. But ultimately, the losing queens will get surrounded inside the hive and balled and chewed and killed and then disposed of outside the hive. Now, I'm not saying put this into real practice, but probably some of us thinking, how can we be more like bees? I know it. But it's a collective decision. It's not made by one head honcho. It's a collective decision. When we come together, we need to work together as a community to make decisions for the community. Often we see in the private sector, there's the egotistical CEO or boss that's constantly driving the one vision and their decisions are overarching. Instead of actually talking to people on the ground, I hear it in groups, in hospitality groups with 30, 40 restaurants. It's like you talk to the people on the ground and that's where progress comes from. As I'm sure you're all very aware, no doubt. And adaptability. So when nectar is rich and flowing into the hive, bees will be sourcing out trees that are in flower and literally dripping, the smell of nectar in the air, the sweetness through spring, summer, and early autumn. The honeycomb is being built, the honey's being filled inside the hexagon cells, and pathways are created inside the hive. Wax is built from honey. So without honey from flowers, we don't have wax, which is the infrastructure of the hive. Adaptability to seasons, where we might be pumping around town, seeing 10 kilos of honey coming into every single beehive around town on our scales that we can monitor online. And then all of a sudden we get 2 weeks of rain and the next 3 months of flowers is washed out. So bees need to be able to resource for 3 months ahead, for 6 months ahead, for 12 months ahead. So they just pillage everything they can. They store as many resources as possible because they know that if there's going to be a rain event, a heat event, or a catastrophic event that's going to stop them from foraging food, or going to lower the resources that are available to them, they need to be able to draw on that. When that happens, we as beekeepers need to be very conscious. we're not immune to making mistakes, but we've developed a principle inside our hives that we only take 50% of the available honey that the bees have built. That means if the bees have stored away 50 kilos of honey, we always leave 25 kilos on the hive, because bees can chew through 0.5 to 1 kilo of honey per day per colony. So we need to be very conscious. We need to be conscious of what we're taking when there isn't much to give. You'll all be aware of the Australian native bees. These are an incredible way to actually contribute immediately in your communities. This is a way that we can connect overnight with groups. We can put a native beehive at the front of our offices. They're stingless. They talk. We can draw on native bees even more so than the European bees, which are an imported bee, for this sense of community. These bees are so gentle. They're so calm. They just operate and go about their business without anyone really knowing that they're there or what they're doing. They produce a beautiful honey, and there's actually 1,700 species of native bees here in Australia. Only about a dozen of which live in colonies like this and build their nests in this beautiful, structured, waxy way. The rest of them are solitary bees. They live by themselves or with a mating partner for life, just to spread their genetic strain into nature. So solitary bees are just as important as the sugar bag bees, but if you want to make an impact immediately to your local ecosystem through and actually make it visible to community, get a native beekeeper in, get a native beehive. They're really, really great, and they also open up conversation with when you're sitting down with your local community. You can reference the bees, you can talk about them, and there's plenty of beekeepers around that you can collaborate with. How we run our business, though, is we're working with corporates. We're working with QIC, we're working with Hutchies, the builders, we're working with CBRE, JLL, because these guys have huge networks that they can deliver a message to. So just our core message of our mission is to pollinate change through communities. We can push that message through 40, 50, 100,000 people over the course of a month just through being in newsletters, just through promoting our story. All around food security, 1/3 of our global food supply depends on honeybee pollination. We also produce a local and national range of honey brands, the local one of which you'll be tasting today. One is from Hutchie's Roof at Toowong, and one is from the James Street precinct down in the Fortitude Valley, which was actually our first ever beehive on a rooftop here in Brisbane 13 years ago. We also work very closely with councils, with schools for education, and we work with our corporates as well to get office teams up onto the rooftops, out into the field, to get their hands on to beehives, because there's nothing better than learning from experience when it comes to beehives and beekeeping. It really makes you ground yourself when you're in nature and you can't escape it. You know, you've got a deadly creature sitting right there and they're just calm as day. Really makes you take a deep breath, which I think we all need when we're working together. Often we just need to take time to just adapt to the energy and take a deep breath and then move in. So building community through nature, that's what we really, really aim to do. I'm going to finish up soon because I've gone a little bit over, but open dialogue and mutual support. They're the two really key things that we've learned over the last decade in business and working with communities, working with councils, and especially working with corporates because they operate on a completely different frequency. The developing shared goals is really key for me in our first sit down when I meet with these people, these clients, and I'm providing constant updates on how their bees are doing, which falls into that mentorship and peer learning space. Next up, innovative thinking. Think outside the box. Think about where bees are going from your rooftop, where they're foraging, the effort that they're going to. They're thinking outside the box. They're searching far and wide for a simple resource. And be prepared to fail. We've failed on so many occasions. Our beehives have died. We've been hit with poisoning. Things have not gone our way. And adaptive strategies. We're all used to hearing these words, I'm sure, but staying agile in these uncertain times. I mean, I certainly feel like every week is a new challenge for me with the global economy, and exporting honey to the US is all of a sudden a challenge. We've got restrictions all around the world. Working with our resources here at a federal and a state level from an export perspective has been really helpful, but as a small business owner, they don't provide everything. We've got to get the answers, essentially, by doing our own research and investing in ways to get around, I guess, government bureaucracy and red tape. Our local brands and our national brand, Velvet Fields is our national brand, B1/3 Neighbourhood Honey is our local brand, highlighting neighbourhoods and suburbs around Brisbane and the southeast. And if you'd like to visit us, please feel free to do so. If you enjoy your honey, visit our website and see what's there. But I think it's really important to come back to this hive mindset concept. You know, every time you sit down with a group of people, whether you know them or not, always come back to the simple things in life. You know, what do we need? We need food, we need structure, we need safety. And that's all that we really need, and we can work from there on what is next. As long as everyone's safe, has food on the table, and has a vision for what they need, then I think we're already 3 steps ahead. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I'm sure we've got a question for Jack. Because if we don't, I do. I heard a quote some time ago that for us to consume honey, it's best to consume honey from the community in which we live, not honey we've bought from out of that community. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, bees forage for up to 5 kilometres, so they are very hyper-local. So Roma Street bees here, they'll be foraging maybe down to Bowen Hills, 2 kilometres away, but they'll have all their food within 2.5 kilometre radius from this zone because we're in an abundant area. The diversity of the ecosystem here and the environment is very rich, so bees don't have to fly so far. I wouldn't say that it's necessary. There are local pollens that do help with your immune system, eating local honey, but what I would suggest is if you can't find local honey, then simply just try and find honey that's Australian honey. Australian honey is just as good, and if you really want to get your effects from honey or the byproducts of honey, then try and eat bee pollen. Bee pollen will boost your immune system, reduce your hay fever symptoms, and reduce inflammation through those high pollen zones of the year.
Thanks, Jack. Any other questions? Oh, we've got a question up there.
Just curious, when you said coastal areas compete with the other beekeepers, what was kind of the nature? Was supply, flowers? What's the kind of issue?
Yeah, so one of the issues that we've kind of, we learnt about, let's say 10 years ago in London and New York was an influx of hobbyist beekeepers with 1 or 2 beehives. In London, for example, in the centre of London, every second house or every street had a beehive or 2 beehives. So what happened was forage went down because there was too many mouths to feed. And bees are very good at regulating their population. So if there's not enough food in the local area, the queen will reduce her laying pattern. If there's an abundant amount of food in the local area and we've got good proteins, minerals, vitamins and amino acids coming into the hive in the form of pollen, not nectar, nectar's a carbohydrate. If there's a good balance between carbohydrates and proteins coming into the hive, then they'll expand their population. But when there's so many beehives and not enough food to feed those beehives, we see a mass starvation and a die-off. So that hasn't quite happened yet on the coast, but the coast is very humid for beekeeping, which means it encourages gut issues in bees. So we see more gut issues like dysentery. We see the spread of disease happening a lot faster because beehives are quite close. Unmanaged beehives breed disease. They breed pathogens and they breed bacteria, and then bees come into those beehives that are not handling themselves well, and they steal the honey, and all those pathogens and bacteria are stored in the honey. So coastal beekeeping is very competitive, and you've got to be very on your game when you live on the coastal regions because you don't know who's around you. Yeah.
Let's give Jack another round of applause. Thank you. It's now afternoon tea time. We could come back earlier and get the show underway if you like, but otherwise back here at 3 o'clock.
to the heart. I never kissed a mouth that tastes like yours. Strawberry